possible that he sideboards out some Stoneforges.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It's just not a card you really want to be tapping out for.
I mean, not until a little bit later, like when you've got a little bit of mana open as well.
Right.
Because tapping out on turn 2, you could just die.
Exactly. So I don't think he wants to really have that many Stoneforges in his deck. I don't know if he's going to think of that, because that's sort of the namesake of the deck. But we'll see. We'll see what he doesn't have in his deck post sideboard. We definitely won't see the Elspeth, the Geist, the O-Ring. One of the equipment will go. But as for the others, we'll see. He also even has Path to Exiles in his sideboard, so this could be really ugly. Really ugly for Richard. So they've begun, and Richard Townley looks like he begins the game with a Ponder. We need the camera. There we go. Oh, 2 Leyline of the Void. Wow. That's going to be really, really tough for Richard to beat. Looking at his sideboard, he has 1 Stern Proctor, which can bounce 1 enchantment, but that's it. He has no way to get rid of multiple ley lines. So this game, his plan is beatdown. And Starlit Sanctuming Tony out. Actually, I lied. He can gain infinite life with Daru Spiritualist and Nomad. So after he does that, the burden will be on Tony Chu to actually kill him. And if Richard ever resolves a Living Wish, let's see what he can get with Living Wish. Normally it would be Emrakul, but that won't hit the graveyard, so it won't shuffle the graveyard back in. So Richard's path to this game will be gaining infinite life. That's going to be his plan. And you see him there with 2 Daru Spiritualists in his hand. And right now he's just pondering away, trying to find the pieces he needs before Tony Chu draws more cards and takes control of this game. The flip side of that is, though, Tony effectively mulled the 5. Sure, he has the ley lines, but he has no real action. Oh, but he draws a Stoneforge Mystic. And that's going to speed up his clock considerably. The only way that Richard will actually be able to kill Tony that I can possibly see is getting an Aether Vial up to 15, as awkward as that sounds, and vialing in Emrakul. So Tony resolves Stoneforge Mystic, fetches up Batterskull, which I'm a little surprised is still in his deck. Richard now with Force of Will, double Brainstorm, double Daru Spiritualist, and Narcomoeba in his hand will cast a Brainstorm. Seeing Nomad, Aether Vial, and that might be a Cabal Therapy, can't really tell. So that's a really good Brainstorm for him. He found the Nomad, he found the Vial, which is exactly what he needed. Now he'll be able to play Vial, and 2 turns later, he should be able to gain infinite life, barring no disruption from Tony, who just drew a Force of Will to go with his Swords to Plowshares. Richard, end of turn Brainstorms, which again, it's just not really a good habit to be in. He's under no pressure. He doesn't need to Brainstorm, and he already knows the top 2 cards of his library. So Brainstorm right there basically read, take the 3rd card down and put it in your hand. 3rd card down was a fetch land, so that was pretty lucky. But normally I don't like doing that. Richard cracks the fetch, searching up a Tundra. And he points at his Aether Vial because he did forget to put a counter on. But that's okay. He has a lot of time to gain that life he needs. And end of turn, Tony Chu vials in his Batter Skull.
I like how you said vials in after all of that.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny.
They're sort of the same card. Kind of, sort of, not really. So this time, Richard remembers to put a counter on his vial and draws a card. Force of Will. That's a good one. Cast Star Spiritualist. I really like this play because this is baiting out a counter from Tony Chu.
Do you have some way to stop this? Perhaps a Force of Will?
Or even a Spell Snare. And the problem for Tony is if he lets that resolve, then any vial activated is a potential danger. And he does Spell Snare it, wisely. Richard should not fight over this. He should just let that resolve.
2 more mana.
Oh, I don't like this. Actually, opening up his Spiritualist to counter magic. Tony going to Brainstorm in response. This is a risky play, because if he doesn't hit a blue card, he cannot counter that, and he didn't hit a blue card. So Richard Townley looks like he will be able to gain infinite life here.
There's a Swords. What does that do?
You can't blame him. That card hasn't been printed for about 16 years. And Richard Force of Wills.
What he was checking there was what the life gain trigger was on. Was it on toughness?
Right. Looks like Narcomoeba should not be in his graveyard, should be removed from the game. We'll make sure that gets fixed for you. And the Spiritualist resolves. Tony Chu, or rather Richard Townley, not going for the life when Tony Chu only had 1 card in hand. Instead, waiting on his vial, he thinks he can respond to anything Tony does. Oh, I guess they're all FG. So Tony Chu sitting only with a Force of Will in his hand for relevant spells. Vial stays on 1.
Starlit.
And that's the piece he needed.
What does that do again? For those of you who are from the Midwest, you can imagine Turbo Bob Wagner's response.
Players in standard win box number 3. Your event's about to begin. Please report to the decided dragon.
So now again, Richard has all the pieces he needs in place. And as soon as he activates that vial, assuming it resolves, he should be able to gain as much life as he wants. I'm not sure.
Upkeep. He's doing this during upkeep.
Good. It's a good play by Richard.
What is that?
I read that one last game, but
Okay.
says okay, that's fine. And
Target it? Yep. Targeted a lot.
So we'll make sure we get you an update on Richard Townley's life total, but for
Okay.
right now, just assume that it's arbitrary. Hopefully our tech guys can put a sideways 8 there. There we go, 8. So now the real game begins. Like I was saying before, Richard Townley now needs to put that Aether Vial up to 15, get an Emrakul, and vial that in. Counting libraries to see who will deck themselves first.
The sideways 8 is on the wrong spot. There we go. So as you can see, the sideways 8 representing our infinity symbol
Right.
here for Richard Townley. It's obviously not literally infinity. It's arbitrarily high. 3,000,000,008 could be the number.
3,000,000,008. Good solid life total. But remember, it probably won't come down to decking, because either Richard will be able to attack him with an Emrakul enough, or Tony Chu will resolve a Jace and Fate Seal him and Jace Ultimate. One of those two should happen. And Tony Chu goes searching through his deck for another equipment. I would be surprised if he had 2 in post board, and it doesn't look like he does. Oh, okay.
GT.
He does have 2 in post board.
Well, now he won't have to draw it.
There you go. So that GT will also probably acquire an arbitrary number of counters here.
And actually, the GT can be used to fight Emrakul, I believe.
It actually can. If that GT gets up to 15 counters, it can kill an Emrakul. We may see some things this game that have never been seen. Cuts the deck, and here comes GT. So cast, equip, and attack. So Richard falls to 3,000,004,000,004. Tony going to 30.
You signed up for $10 draft number 6 and standard win box.
I love Legacy.
Yep. Tony uses his tokens to kill the Narco Amoeba and the Nomad.
$10 draft number 6 and standard win box number 3.
Aether Vial up to what I believe is 3.
Attacks for 4 again. Now down to 3,000,000,000,000. Richard Trolley continues.
Yep. Tony Chu up to 34. Forgot Vial.
Let's go.
38 life.
And he's building up his Umezawa's GT counters.
I doubt he knows exactly what they're for.
They're there to be sandbagged against
Right,
whatever.
Exactly. He knows he should be building them up.
Oh, he only needs 6 more attacks to be able to stop Emrakul.
Wow. Interesting to know, Richard Townley does have a Stern Proctor in his sideboard. If you're unfamiliar with Stern Proctor, it bounces an artifact or enchantment. But there's a Jace, so
Oh boy.
this might spell trouble for Richard Townley, who can win the game, but it's going to take him many turns to do so.
I think Narcomoeba, by the way, is another card that offends me.
Just on a visceral level.
Well, they created it at a certain point where it was like, really?
Yeah.
Did you need to make that?
Having that in the same set as Bridge from Below.
Really?
So there's a Jace, and Richard knows he has to fight over that. Tony forces right back.
Okay, you know what I think he should have done here? He should have probably cast that Orm's Chant in response to the Jace.
Right.
Make that bait out a counterspell. And then if it does get the counterspell, then cast the Forcible. And if it doesn't, well, then your Forcible is going to definitely resolve.
Right. Because Jace is the only way that he can lose. But instead it resolves, and that will be bad news for Richard.
I'm willing to bet that Tony Chu is going to finish this one up pretty quickly. Maybe about 6 turns from now.
That's about right. Yeah, and Jace immediately Fate Seals. And you can have that one. Vial ticks up to 6 and draws a fetch land. Passes back. Up to 7.
He needs more counters for his Jace. Probably soon more for his Umezawa's GT.
Right. It's on 6.
He's like, look, leave it there no matter what. There's a fetch land there.
A bluff that the player with the fetch land can never afford to call. Richard Townley, end of turn, uses his fetch land. Sees that there's a Cabal Therapy on top. Didn't need that one. Learned his lesson from the first game. Looks like he's grabbing an Underground Sea. And that, actually all his mana-producing lands save 1 Plains and 2 Starlit Sanctum.
Wow. So he can't actually get to the point of being able to hardcast Emrakul.
No, it's impossible for him to hardcast Emrakul in this deck. Only Violet in. Not even if he Living Wishes for both Bojuka Bog and Wasteland. So Vile ticks up to 7, and he draws another Starlit Sanctum. And we'll pass the turn. GTA goes up to 10 counters. And Jace goes up to 9 counters. Ooh, we have one to think about. Probably a Living Wish. Bottom. Yeah, the only cards that Tony's going to put on the bottom right now, Brainstorm, Ponder, and Living Wish.
So it looks like we have 8 counters on Vile, is that correct?
8, yes.
That means that there's no way Richard Townley can catch up to the Jace.
No,
Jace is too far ahead.
He's going to somehow have to remove the Jace, and I don't know if there's any way he can do that. I don't think so. I think Tony Chu's going to have to screw this game up pretty badly. And fetch land out of targets.
You know, that requirement has never stopped me.
Me neither. I've activated a fetch land at 1 life before with a GTA with 4 counters in play. It was painful.
Making mistakes is something that happens more often than I think all of us wish.
Yeah, care to admit. Richard shuffles his deck. That Vile will tick up to 9, maybe 10, hard to tell. Either way, won't be enough.
9.
And Jace is 2 turns away. Richard Townley, though, playing it to the bitter end. Up to 14 counters on Umezawa's GTA. And 13 counters on Jace.
So much doom.
And this one stays on top. Vile up to 10. This is the most counters I've ever seen on Vile or GTA.
That's true for me as well.
Richard draws a Necrotic Ooze, but with no graveyard. That's simply an Ogre Resistor. And there's the hand.
Yep, there we go.
An interesting game.
Infinity is no match for 57.
No, it's not. And Tony Chu takes it 2 games to none.
Oh, he did. He just flashed the still had all these.
It's like you weren't winning it.
Still had all these.
So Severed Breakfast could not overcome the blue-white Stoneforge.